Yeah.
Here we go. The camera also shines a light. I saw the funny expression I make when I'm shocked. I decided my clothes were frumpy, and I realized I've spent years saying it's fine on repeat. It's fine because I'm angry and don't have the words for it. It's fine because it's not worth the effort to explain. It's fine, though I might be doing my best to hold the family together while feeling overwhelmed. It's fine because that's what I've been trained to be. Fine, small, not a bother.
It's finally happening. Kody Brown's tale is finally being put to paper. Her book, publishing this September, is not merely a memoir, it's a reckoning. A subtle one, strong in its understatement, full not of scandal or finger-pointing, but of something more personal. Introspection. When the clip of her own voice is played back, just a quick reading from the back of her new book, there is a change in her tone, a mixture of softness and bravery. It's the voice of someone who has stripped off layers of conditioning. The kind that is wrapped around a girl, since she could walk and talk. Be nice. Be flexible. Don't take up space. Don't be a bother. Smile even when it hurts. The camera also shines a light, she reads. And then, quietly, I realized I've spent years saying it's fine on repeat. Those words fall like a whisper over decades. It's fine because you're too tired to tell. It's fine because the world you inhabit doesn't take your anger. It's fine because somewhere in the process, survival required it to be fine, even when it wasn't. For Kody, the unraveling didn't happen overnight. She didn't just wake up one morning and say, I'm done. That's not how it works when you're rooted, really rooted in something. And Kody wasn't just in a polygamous marriage. She was born from it. Her bloodline reads like a map of the entire movement. Her family wasn't adjacent to polygamy. They were it. Her dad, Rex Allred, wasn't merely a believer. He was the son of Rulon Allred, prophet, patriarch, leader. And her mom, Annie, was a LAVISH, one of the most notorious surnames in fundamentalist Mormon history. It was in both of their families on both sides. The expectation wasn't verbalized. It was indelible. This is who you are. This is what you do. And most of all, you stay. Even as others started to depart in the 80s and 90s, Kody didn't. Her mother departed. Her aunts and uncles departed. But Kody remained. Perhaps due to her loyalty. Perhaps due to fear. Perhaps because when everything is your whole world, you don't know what lies outside the confines until you push yourself to peek. Now she is searching. She's pointing the lens inward. And what she finds isn't necessarily about her marriage to Kody Brown. It's about what preceded it. About how she was formed. About the generations of women who learned to become small. That's where this tale actually starts. Not with the reality show or the very public breakup, but with the realization that all she thought she knew may not be true. And that is not something you just confess. Not when you've constructed your life around it. Not when quitting means foregoing not only your mate, but your community, your identity, your history. Kody's life hadn't been a page in the larger book. She was a family legacy, one that was familiar and respected in their world. The Allred name had value. It was family, heritage, prophecy. And, in their world, going doesn't merely happen. It's an announcement. It's a no longer believe this. And with it, there are repercussions. There's no way to walk out the door and not leave pieces of yourself behind. In her memoir, Kody isn't throwing anyone under the bus. She's not building a tabloid empire. She's simply excavating her truth from the ruins of a life she no longer lives. And that truth is deeply entangled in decades of spiritual conviction, obedience, and sacrifice. Unlike the others in the Brown family, Kody's ties to polygamy weren't secondary. They were foundational. Robin's family converted into polygamy. Mary's father adopted the faith when she was a child. But Kody? She was born into it through and through. Her upbringing wasn't a choice, it was a given. And yet, something shifted. Slowly at first, and then with more urgency. The show, oddly enough, became a mirror. It held up her life in ways she hadn't prepared for. It revealed things she couldn't unsee. Expressions she didn't know she made. Tensions she had buried. The performance of being fine slowly unraveled. It's not easy to admit that your life isn't working. Especially when it's one you've publicly defended for years. But Kody reached that point. Not out of bitterness, but because she couldn't deny the truth anymore. And it wasn't just about Kody. Yes, it was failing as a marriage. Yes, she was depleted by the asymmetry. By the way everything skewed in Robin's favor. By the emotional labor never shared. But the deeper hurt wasn't marital. It was existential. It was the secret knowledge that the system she had trusted to work for her might never have been designed to do so in the first place. There's a specific type of pain that comes with understanding you were shaped for something that never had your best interest at heart. And Kody, in that pain, started doing something courageous. She began to dismantle, to forget, to reclaim her own voice, not the one she was taught to speak, not the one she was conditioned to mimic, but the one that was always hers. The choice to leave wasn't necessarily about escaping a bad relationship. It was about leaving a worldview behind, about releasing a story that had been handed down through generations. And perhaps most revolutionary of all, it was about opting to live in the truth, even if that truth meant being excommunicated. Because ex-polygamy doesn't start with folding up a bag. It has spiritual repercussions, with the rumors of apostasy, of wickedness, of being lost. And yet, Christine walked, steadily, quietly. She didn't require headlines. She didn't require screaming. She just needed to be finished. And she was. This memoir, in short, is not about scandal, but about renewal. Not about others, but about Christine taking herself back. Page by page, she's stripping away the layers. Not to embarrass anybody, but to find peace. And perhaps, just perhaps, assist someone else in finding it too. It's not a bad rap story. It's ugly. It's complicated. There's regret and confusion and pain. But clarity, too. Strength. A steady kind of courage that doesn't come out of anger, but out of self-knowledge. Christine doesn't have to call out anyone else. Just being honest about her own life is daring enough. And the world she left behind? It does not readily forgive a woman who ceases to be compliant. But Christine did not leave for their sake. She left for her own liberty. There's a silent strength in Christine these days. Not boisterous, not showy, but firm, grounded, immovable. The kind of strength that does not require applause to stand tall. Because when she walked away, she didn't just leave a man. She left a system that taught her to question her instincts. A framework that valued loyalty above truth. And a family that was more broken than whole. And still, the most difficult aspect wasn't the breakdown of the marriage. It wasn't even Robin, although her existence hovered in the distance of the collapse. It was the loss of the vision of family, the collective, the dream she believed in for so long, the interconnected, plural family that would bring each other up. A team, a unit, a bond not of faith but of chosen love. That dream dissolved gradually. One tiny compromise at a time. One quiet dinner. One moment of not being noticed. Of seeing Kody lean further into one relationship while the others slipped away quietly. Christine picked up on it. Her children picked up on it. The inequality increased. The favoritism cut sharply. And Robin, she wasn't merely another wife. She became the universe. Whether she meant to or not, her story, of sacrifice, of misunderstanding, of victimhood, rose louder than anyone else's. But Christine recalls it differently. She recalls bending over backwards. She recalls making space. She recalls attempting. And she recalls her children attempting as well, attempting to connect, be part of something greater, only to feel that they were tiptoeing around, that no matter what they did, it was not good enough. And over time, it wasn't merely the marriage that was broken, it was the relationships among the children, among the wives, among the past and the present. Christine doesn't paint Robin as a villain. She doesn't have to. What she sees is something more subtle, more painful, a woman who survived by casting herself as the misunderstood one. And in doing so, isolated the rest. Maybe she didn't mean to. But the result was the same: distance, division, distrust. And Christine's kids, smart, sensitive, lovey, knew it. They watched their dad stretch himself to the breaking point to win over one side of the family, while neglecting the other to do as they pleased. And in their eyes, that favoritism wasn't just glaring, it was hurtful. What stings Christine today is not just the breakup of her own relationship with Kody. It's the breakup of those quiet connections that once mattered. The connection to Robin's kids, Aurora, who was like a little sister, Dayton, with whom she had small but genuine moments. Lost. Just. Gone. Not with a bang. With silence. And Christine? She struggled to cling to hope. Hoped that those bonds could be reformed. But she knows. Deep down she knows. Too much has passed. Too much went unspoken, or worse, twisted into something else. What was once a family became something different altogether. A tale dictated by ego. By performance. By control disguised as love. And when Christine did finally stand up to Kody, actually stand up to him, not with anger, but with soft, unflinching truth, he ignored her. Didn't hear her. Instead, he sidestepped. Blamed her for disloyalty. Equated her to her mother, as if that was a jab. As if loyalty was the look of shutting up. Of erasing oneself. In that instant, Christine saw it plainly. It wasn't about partnership anymore. It was about power. About who gets to dictate the narrative. About who gets called loyal, and who gets called a traitor. But she was no longer playing that game. Because the Christine who remained silent, who diminished herself, that one, she's not here anymore. What's left is a woman who has nothing more to prove and everything left to live. And yet, even now, Christine bears the burden of vows made, not to a husband, not to a marriage, but to a religion that defined her from her earliest days. To the land, to the covenant, to the forebears. She doesn't leave those behind lightly. She never did, which is why the grief still remains, not as regret, but as sorrow for the life she thought she was creating. A life that, despite its imperfections, she really did believe in once. But the point of fracture wasn't emotional. It wasn't even spiritual. It was practical. The bills, the debt, the house, the note coming due. And before she knew it, Christine was sitting across from Kody at a table, not as a wife, not as a partner, but as a co-senior to a financial disaster she never requested. A dialogue that needed to be about resolution, about responsibility, became more silence, more posturing, more of the same. So she made a plan. Not a sensational one, not a revenge one, a legal one. For now she needed to defend herself. And more crucially, defend her children. And so it was that Christine became fully herself. Not merely as a woman exiting a marriage, but as a mother insisting on responsibility. As a woman who would not be gaslit. As a person who no longer considered peace equaling silence. Because peace, she understood, isn't the absence of war. It's the presence of self-respect. And for the first time in years, Christine is not longer the woman waiting to be picked. She's the one making the selection. Selecting clarity. Selecting independence. Selecting happiness. And that decision? That's the most revolutionary thing she's ever done. Christine's path isn't personal, it's heritage. It's interwoven with generations of women who came before her and were instructed to keep quiet, to be compliant, not to rock the boat. Women who said it's okay when it wasn't okay. Who smiled during sorrow, served till they were spent, and vanished behind expectations they never volunteered for. And for most of her life, Christine believed that's what being strong looked like. Until she caught sight of herself on tape. Until she heard the sound of her own voice repeating, "It's fine," again and again. Not because it was, but because she had no idea how to say it wasn't. That's when all the threads began to come apart. She started to understand that she'd been taught, not only by religion but by family and by culture, to minimize herself. To occupy less space. To keep the peace. To bear the emotional labor for everyone else. And reality television, with all of its anarchy, did something that no one could have predicted. It became a mirror. It reflected her weariness, her desire, her loss of self. And somewhere in the spaces between the confessionals and the quiet moments in between, she started to awaken. It wasn't abrupt. It was gradual. Like unfreezing after a winter. She started questioning the script she'd been given since childhood. The one that said being a good woman meant enduring. The one that taught her to equate love with sacrifice, submission with faithfulness. But what happens when the sacrifice never ends? When love always comes at the cost of your own dignity? Christine began to unlearn, to deconstruct, to question each thing she'd ever believed about marriage, about womanhood, about God. And she saw something devastating. Much of it wasn't hers. It was inherited, embedded. And now, standing on the precipice of her memoir, she's not writing out of anger. She's writing out of clarity. This book is not about revenge. It's about reclaiming. She's not attempting to embarrass Kody. She's not looking to dish out tabloid gossip. What she's doing is much more courageous. She's lifting the veil on what it was like to come of age in a faith system that defined her worth as how well she could share. Be conciliatory, not be a nuisance. And leaving that world, that's not like leaving a job or a city or even a husband. It's like cutting yourself loose from the only map you've ever known, without knowing if there's another one waiting. Her connections to polygamy aren't superficial, they're generational, deep, cultural, spiritual. Her grandfather was a prophet. Her great-uncles were founders. Both her maternal and paternal families are embroidered through the very fabric of the apostolic United Brethren. The Allreds, the LaVishes, names that hold significance in those communities. So when Christine walked away, she wasn't leaving behind just a man. She was ending lineage. And the gravity of that can't be underestimated. Because when you abandon something that fundamental, you are what the system dreads most, an apostate, a truth-teller. And in that world, apostates are not simply incorrect. They're dangerous. They're a threat to the entire edifice. Christine understands this. She's experienced it in the cold shoulders from relatives, in the silence from long-standing friends, in the whispers in the rear. Some still talk to her. Some greet her warmth. But not many. Many view her now as lost, broken, a warning. And yet she writes on. Because somewhere out there are women still caught in that way of thinking. Women who are tired but don't know why. Girls being taught to take up less space. Wives crying behind closed doors while smiling for the camera. And if Christine's testimony makes just one of them feel seen, then it's worth it. Her bravery isn't in the pages themselves. It's in choosing to publish them. To speak. To give voice to what was once unnameable. Because she could have kept quiet, lived out her freedom in secret, moved on quietly, but she didn't. And in making that choice, she's giving voice to every woman who ever uttered "it's fine" when it wasn't. Then there's Kody, talking still as if nothing ever transpired, giving marriage tips on cameos, grinning at the camera as he advises young couples to decorate together, choose furniture together, create intimacy through throw pillows and color schemes. Christine listens, perhaps in shock, perhaps not surprised one bit. Because to Kody, partnership had always felt transactional, about negotiation, about terms, about making things ours, without recognizing who's really putting in the work to keep it all together. He speaks of intimacy, but Christine recalls the emotional distance. He speaks of being together, but she recalls how he shattered every attempt at unity. And now, with Robin, in a new $1 million house, it all seems like a strange fantasy, like a stage set constructed on the shoulders of the rest. Christine's not bitter, but she is finished pretending. And as for child support, as for financial responsibility, those aren't simply legal contests. They're moral ones. Because for Christine, walking into a courtroom wasn't about dollars. It was about boundaries. It was about no longer playing by rules that never benefited her. In her old life, women weren't supposed to engage courts, weren't supposed to ask for anything. They were instructed to just take it up with church officials. Keep it under wraps. Don't rock the boat. Christine rocked the boat. She filed. She fought back. She said, no more. And in doing so, she did what very few women of her religion ever have the courage to do. She didn't do it out of spite. She did it because her daughter was worth it. And perhaps that's the greatest difference now. Christine's decisions aren't responses anymore. They're intentions. Measured. Purposeful. She's not motivated by anger. She's motivated by peace. And peace, she's discovered, isn't passive. It's active. It's protective. It's fought for. There are still bouts of sorrow. Holidays alone. Haunting memories about severed connections that are never going to be mended. But there's also relief. There's laughter now. Quiet stability. A new beat established on truth rather than performance. Christine didn't burn the old life to ashes. She just walked away from the ash and stopped faking it was still fire. And in doing that, she didn't just save herself. She paved the way for others.